In the magnificent and unforgiving crucible of the African savannah, where the first light of dawn dyes the tall grasses as silken gold, the laws of life are etched deep and clear. It is the law of instinct. It is written in claw, in fang, in an unceasing vigilance. The hunter must pursue, and the hunted must flee. Every creature understands its role, shaped by millions of years of evolution. Fear is mandatory. Survival is the goal. But there are stories, rare moments, that occur to challenge that entire order. One quiet morning, in the legendary plains of the Serengeti, park rangers came across a sight that even the most seasoned scientists could not believe. In the shadow of an ancient baobab tree, a small female baboon named Kala, whose fur was the color of earth, sat clutching a living being. It was not a lively baboon infant, but a tiny lion cub, barely a few days old, nestled deep in Kala's protective embrace for warmth. Baboon and lion, the hunted and the hunter. The two opposite poles of the circle of life were now one in a deeply contradictory image. The cub's mother, Rami, was gone, perhaps due to illness or abandonment by the pride. But instead of leaving the cub to a harsh fate, Kala made an extraordinary choice. She chose maternal love over instinct. She chose compassion over fear. Can love truly be stronger than inherited fear? Could a baboon teach the future king of the jungle about mercy? Follow the phenomenal story of Kala and Rami, a story that will make you rethink the final boundaries of altruism. Kala was not the troop's matriarch, but she was known as a mother with a gentle nature and extreme devotion to her young. Her life revolved around foraging, watching out for threats, and protecting her small infant. But everything changed on that fateful afternoon. The lion cub, Rami, was found in a narrow rock crevice, where his mother had succumbed to a mysterious illness, or perhaps a severe injury after a territorial dispute. Rami lay there, soaked and weak, his desperate, tiny meows not loud enough to pierce the savannah silence. When Kala stumbled upon Rami while foraging, her first instinct was to retreat. Lions were the reason baboons slept restlessly and lived in constant alertness. A lion was the enemy. But then, something deep took hold. Perhaps the sound of the helpless crying infant touched her sacred maternal instinct. An internal struggle lasted only a few short minutes. It felt like a lifetime. Fear or compassion? In the end, compassion won. Kala, with a courage that even a male lion would respect, crouched down. She gently used her mouth and hands to lift Rami. Her action was swift and decisive, an act entirely unlike the hunted. As soon as Kala brought Rami back to her temporary shelter, chaos erupted in the baboon troop. They were terrified, screaming and driving her away. The troop leader, an old male, constantly threatened Kala, warning her about this madness. He would not accept a potential danger growing up within their community. Kala was faced with a painful choice: return to the safety of the troop and abandon Rami, or be isolated to protect this frail being. Kala chose Rami. She led her own infant and Rami away from the troop. Isolation became the price she paid for her kindness. She had to forage for 3 mouths and be doubly vigilant, not only against lions and hyenas, but also against the scorn and distance of her own kind. Scientists watching through binoculars called this bond impossible, but to Kala, it was simply a mother's duty. She sacrificed her safety and community to care for the interspecies offspring, allowing Rami to nestle against her for warmth and nurse on precious milk, which was meant for her own young. The first days passed in extreme danger, but Kala's love created an invisible layer of protection between Rami and the harsh laws of the savannah. Time passed, and the difference between Rami and Kala's baboon infant grew starker. Rami grew quickly. His fuzzy golden coat faded, his large, powerful paws began to emerge, and his fangs became sharper. The hunting instinct, though suppressed, was always latent. For Kala, this was the greatest challenge: how to teach a predator about control when she herself was the prey of that very species. Kala could not teach Rami how to hunt, but she taught him a lesson far more important: mercy and boundaries. When Rami began to test his strength by stalking or roughhousing with Kala's infant, Kala would intervene immediately. She did not flee, but instead used her body language. A small warning growl, a decisive headbutt to Rami's shoulder to push him away, or simply a resolute stare. Rami, somehow, understood the message. Strength must be coupled with restraint. On one occasion, Rami instinctively stalked a lost wildebeest calf. He crouched low, his body tense, preparing to pounce. Immediately, Kala appeared. She did not attack the wildebeest, nor did she run from Rami, but she gently stood between him and the prey. Kala just stood there, calm and unafraid. Rami stopped, confused by the sudden barrier. He looked into his foster mother's eyes, and after a moment of internal struggle, he abandoned the hunt. From this small baboon mother, Rami learned that not every weak creature was a meal, and that he had the capacity to choose kindness over the killer instinct. This strange arrangement also forced both to face external threats together. When a lone hyena, attracted by the smell of milk and weakness, crept closer, Kala and Rami reacted as a unit. Kala used her agility for distraction, while Rami, though still young, let out his first roar, still weak and juvenile, but filled with a fierce determination to protect. The hyena, confused by this strange and unexpected combination, retreated. This unusual bond created a protective wall that no natural law could explain. Rami grew up not only with the strength of a lion, but also with the patience, vigilance, and compassion of a baboon. Love had molded his predatory nature, shaping a different kind of future king. Rami had grown. He was no longer a cute, cuddled cub, but a robust young lion, with a nascent mane forming a dark halo around his face. His cohabitation with Kala had become unsustainable. His weight and strength were no longer suited to life in trees or small rock dens. More worryingly, his nature was to dominate, and he needed to learn how to communicate and survive in the world of his own kind. And then, the final test arrived. One hot afternoon, a coalition of young male lions, pushed out of their own pride, wandered into Kala's territory. They were aggressive opportunists, seeking territory and rivals to assert their strength. They quickly spotted Rami. They smelled the baboon's scent and the weakness in Rami's demeanor, a combination that made him a perfect target. In the law of lions, young males must eliminate potential rivals before they grow too strong. The air grew thick. The low growls of the strange lions echoed like thunder. They began to tighten the circle. In that moment of life and death, Kala performed an act of absolute bravery, exceeding all limits of self-preservation instinct. She did not run. She placed her small, hairy body between Rami and the intruders. She screamed, jumped, and stomped fiercely, displaying an aggression and protection a baboon should never show a lion. The young male lions, confused by the fearless and confrontational prey, momentarily paused. Rami could have taken that moment to flee, but he did not. He stood still, his heart seemingly struggling between the lion's fighting instinct and the lesson of loyalty. Then, something extraordinary happened. Rami stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kala. He opened his mouth and let out a roar. Not the weak cry of the past, but a deep, powerful sound that resonated across the savannah, full of authority and the promise of a king. He protected his foster mother. Confronted by this strange combination and unexplainable courage, the other male lions grew wary and eventually retreated. Kala had bought precious time for Rami. After that moment, the park rangers realized it was time to intervene. Rami had proven his strength and survival ability, but to live a full life, he needed a pride. They arranged to transfer Rami to a nearby reserve, where a lioness pride needed a strong and wise male. The scene of separation was a silent, emotional moment. Kala stood on a rock, watching the transport cage carrying Rami fade away. There were no cries of sorrow, only the gaze of acceptance. She had done the impossible. She had raised a lion with love and taught him with compassion. Her legacy had begun. Rami began his new life in a lion pride. The first days were tense. He carried the scent of Baboon, and his behavior was unlike any other young male lion. He did not rush to show off his strength or engage in reckless hunting. Instead, he showed patience, vigilance, and mercy, the qualities he learned from Kala. He hunted and shared food. He stood guard at night and mediated arguments. He became a different kind of leader, strong yet wise, ruling with restraint rather than mere power. After 6 months, Rami was fully accepted by the lionesses. He became a respected protector, and a miracle happened in his territory. Rami's pride never hunted baboons. Though baboons were easy and readily available prey, they remained safe in Rami's area. It was Kala's silent legacy, a code of honor Rami carried with him, creating an inexplicable zone of safety for the species that raised him. Meanwhile, Kala aged in peace. She was accepted back by her old baboon troop, not for her strength, but for her extraordinary courage. She became a silent icon, a reminder of love transcending prejudice. After years of peaceful life, one early morning, rangers found Kala lying in eternal rest under the morning sun, passed away peacefully without pain or fear. That same night, a sound echoed across the savannah, a long, deep, resonating roar that lasted longer than usual. It was Rami, standing at the border of his territory under the moonlight. His roar was not a challenge, but a hymn of tribute, a grateful farewell to the interspecies mother who taught him the true meaning of strength. The story of Kala and Rami proves that love, connection, and compassion have no species boundaries. In a world that often prioritizes division and conflict, this story reminds us that kindness is a universal language that can mold even the fiercest nature. It is the belief that the most impossible connections are the strongest, and one brave heart can change the laws of nature itself. If this moving story has brought you hope, please hit the like button and share it with a friend who needs inspiration today. What do you think was the hardest thing Kala had to teach Rami? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next inspiring stories about the power of love and life.